And welcome all to the Virginia Synod World Hunger Team Food and Faith Seminar for April. We're glad that you're with us this afternoon. Are you curious about what Feeding America programs can offer your feeding ministry? Are there opportunities available to connect with Feeding America? Well, we're very excited and honored to have Ms. Brandon Comer, Director of Children's Program from Feeding Southwest Virginia, to discuss kids feeding programs, both pre-COVID and post-COVID. Brandon will inform us on how partnering with Feeding America can assist with feeding programs. As I said, Brandon is on staff with Families Feeding Southwest Virginia. A little bit about her background. She's been married nearly 30 years. She has 3 adult children and now resides in Bedford County on a small hobby farm. Her background is in early childhood education as well as art. She taught both basic kindergarten and first grade briefly until she decided to stay home with her children until the last one left for college. As a stay-at-home mother, she owned a mixed media art gallery for 6 years. And after many years of volunteer work at Feeding Southwest Virginia, they asked Brandon to complete the grant as lead on our mobile children's cafe to grow food truck. Once that grant period ended, Feeding Southwest Virginia asked Brandon to remain on, and from there she briefly spent time as a nutrition coordinator and a children's program representative until she was promoted to director of children's program. Brandon has worked for Feeding Southwest Virginia for nearly 4 years. So we're going to have Brandon Comer talk to us about the kids feeding programs and how partnering with Feeding America can assist with feeding programs. Brandon?
Hi, good morning. Hope everyone's doing well. John, if you want to put the PowerPoint up, I'll just kind of follow along with that. You can go to the next page. I wanted to start off first by giving you a little bit of information. Everything I tell you is what we at Feeding Southwest Virginia are doing out of our food bank. However, the state of Virginia is covered by 6 other wonderful food banks who do similar, if not the same programs that we do. So if you're not in the Feeding Southwest Virginia territory, or you're going to another state and some of these programs sound like something you'd be interested in, you can reach out to any of these food banks. Each of these are the ones that are within the Feeding America umbrella. So we are under Feeding America, but we have changed our name to Feeding Southwest Virginia. So it is a little more impactful. It tells you who we're feeding, even though we do have Southside Virginia territories as well. So if you want to go to the next slide. A little bit about Feeding Southwest Virginia. Our mission is to feed Southwest Virginia's hungry. We do that through a network of partnerships. Pam Irvine, our CEO, founded us in 1981, and she started by using her husband and children as the main staff. And she has now expanded to, we're going to have 40 years in May as our 40th anniversary. And we have 2 locations. Our first one is here in Salem, and this is our primary location. And then we have another office in Abington and a warehouse distribution down there. And we have about, I'm gonna say 55, 58 people on staff now at Feeding Southwest Virginia. We started out as Southwest Virginia's Second Harvest Food Bank. Back then, Feeding America was named Second Harvest. They changed their name. We became Feeding America Southwest Virginia, but we didn't feel like it was impactful for our area. So we dropped the America, even though we are still part of that network. And we are now Feeding Southwest Virginia. That's what we do. We serve in the state of Virginia, 26 counties and 9 cities across our region. And at Print, I have not updated this. It said we are a network of 354 partner feeding programs. Unfortunately or fortunately, due to COVID, we have expanded by at least 75 to 100 more programs. Now, those aren't all children's. Children's are a good chunk of that. We're probably around 180 to 200 programs throughout the year that feed children, and the rest are agencies who are food pantries or soup kitchens, that type of organization. So if you want to go to the next slide, I will go over just the children's programs portion of this, but we do have other agencies who are partners with us that come and shop our warehouses, and then have soup kitchens or food pantries like we talked about. But from the children's perspective, things have changed drastically in the last year. COVID raised our to-date numbers by 250%, the number of children we were feeding in the last year. If we were to look at June, July, and August of 2020 versus June, July, August of 2019, we increased our feeding. We had, in 2019, we had 52 sites just for those 3 months. And in 2020, we had 27 sites, and we did 250% more feeding of children. So it's a huge need, and it does not seem to be letting up anytime soon. The different children's programs we serve children aged 1 to 18, or anyone 19 to 21, up to 25, who are a disabled young adult who might be in a public school IEP program or a MINIC type program school or something like that. Our funding for our main feeding programs that run during the after school programming days and summer days are federally reimbursed. Our backpacks, our Kids Farmers Market are run through grants and corporate sponsors. Without those, we could not fund these programs. The programs we currently run under children's programs are the Child and Adult Care Food Program, but it's actually 5 different programs under the USDA, but we only run the at-risk after school. And in a non-COVID world, that would mean that we would serve any kind of program that is running outside of school hours during the school year. So when schools are in session, you might have an after-school program at a Boys and Girls Club, or the libraries are always a good partner. We do some VCEs, and they will offer an after-school program for children. We help feed them. We offer a snack and a supper. They can choose one or both meals. In a non-COVID world, we would have a summer food service program, and that would mean when schools are out for summer break, we would feed during that summer. Again, we do a lot of programs where it's a day camp for a week at a church or a couple weeks at a church. It might be the libraries are distributing and backing it with some of their feed and read programs. It could be a YMCA program where they're watching the kids while the parents are at work for the day. It could be any type of program like that in the summer. The difference between after school and summer, it's a little bit easier to qualify sites, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But also we offer breakfast, a morning snack or an afternoon snack, a lunch, or a supper during the summer. Now, sites can only choose 2 of those meals. We can't feed supper and lunch at the same time because those are the 2 highest reimbursements. So the government says you can choose any 2 meals that suit your program except supper and lunch. So a lot of our families, because a lot of our sites, because their families are have a high risk for food insecurity, will choose breakfast and lunch because those have the most calories. It's the most bang for your buck, if you will, for the kids, gets enough calories in them and keeps them active. We also have a Cafe to Go food truck that was launched in 2017, and that's actually how I came aboard with Feeding Southwest Virginia. We serve our summer feeding program and our after school program with that food truck. I saw that. I had been volunteering off and on for years with Feeding Southwest Virginia, and I was in the warehouse one day cleaning dirty food that was coming through, and then getting rid of anything that was too dented or close to expiration. And the volunteer coordinator came in and said, I know something that would be a good fit for you. We have a new food truck starting up, and we need people who will go into a kitchen that we're renting and help prepare the meals and then follow the truck and distribute the meals to the kids. So I knew Barb real well. I said, all right, I'll give you 2 days and let's see what happens. And so the first week, it was actually the second week the truck was in service, I served 2 days. I went home after the second date, and something hit me. It was a particular child who I saw in the story, kind of tugged at my heartstrings, and to think back on it still kind of tugs at my heartstrings. And I signed up for every single day for the rest of the summer that was available. And I drive an hour in. It was a commute. I would go straight to the kitchen that they rented. I would help prepare food. I would immediately follow the truck around, and I would distribute every single day. And that's how the person who was overseeing that program had childcare issues. They asked me to fill in for her, and that's all she wrote. So that truck means a lot to me. And we do that just in our Roanoke City area. But it is available. We do use it for special events throughout the region. We also do kids farmers markets, also in partnership with the after school and the summer feeding. And what that entails is we have some sites who are partners, and we see them every other month. But we also have pop-up ones. And I've done this with Chuck Miller at Wheatland Church, which is what brought me to you all. But we will go set up at one of our summer sites or after school sites, and we put out a display of fresh produce, and we do it really pretty. We put tablecloths down, we put pretty little harvest baskets, we have signage with pictures as well as the product, and then we have it in Spanish on the back for different communities. And prior to this, we've sent out a flyer that Chuck or whomever will put in their bag that goes to the children with their food the week before the market. On that, it tells you what produce we're serving, how much it would cost. We always put one of those horrible, awful fruits or vegetables that no kid will ever eat, and we put it with a strawberry or grapes, because we know if they want those strawberries, they're going to have to get that butternut squash and take it home and learn all about butternut squash. So the kids cut the money out, they come back, they have $10 in what we call food bank bucks, and they get to shop and make their own choices, which is huge for children because a lot of times they eat what's given to them. We're a food bank. We give you whatever we can get our hands on. You don't have that choice. This is giving children a choice to choose what they're going to eat in their household. So the kids really love that. We've kind of adjusted that so it's a touchless activity now. But they still just absolutely love it. I know some of our libraries actually send order forms home for families who can't get to it. But it's a very popular thing. And once one of our sites has marketed it on their Facebook page or Instagram page, they become huge. I know at one event last year, we did 178 children at that event, and we were only planning on 120. So we slowly started thinning out how much went out, but they got everything they asked for. We also have two different backpack programs. We have our typical backpack program, which is an agency program. So an agency becomes a partner. They said they are going to partner with a certain school. They want to do backpacks, so they will come and they will shop our warehouse. They will get their food. They'll take it back to their organization. A lot of churches do this. They'll take it back to the church. The church volunteers will get together. They will package all the backpacks to whatever menus they had decided upon. Once those backpacks are completely packed, they take them to the school, and the schools distribute them. And then they just turn in paperwork at the end of the month, so how many backpacks they distributed. But what we're finding is a lot of those organizations are aging out. The volunteer base is getting older, and it's not being replaced very easily with the next generation. So a lot of them are cutting back how much work they're doing, or they're closing completely. So we're trying to pick up the holes and the gaps in that. So we've got a pilot program right now that is funded through grant monies through December 31st. It's called Weekend Bites Backpack Pilot Program. We're doing a similar program, but we're doing distributions twice a month, and we've got a huge nutrition education surrounding that. We send out enrichment activities. We send out, if we've got 8 or 9 fruits and vegetables, and we might have some bonus buys. We work with Virginia Department of Education and their Harvest of the Month. So the Harvest of the Month for April is really exciting. It's iceberg lettuce. So we'll send out information on iceberg lettuce, how to grow it, plant it, how to use it, multiple different ways. We'll also send out recipes that will include the Harvest of the Month, but every single fruit and vegetable we have available for that Kids Farmers Market, or for that we're sending out with the backpack program. And we'll send all that out. And most of the recipes are 5 ingredients or fewer because we don't want anyone to have to go spend money and go shopping. So it's usually, we have things that people will have in the pantry. But if we're sending out a salsa recipe, we might put some Mexican ingredients in there to make it more Mexican, and we might put some Indian ingredients to turn it a little more Indian, whatever they have in their pantry. So we try and cover all that. So if you want to go to the next slide, I'll go a little bit more in depth with each of the programs. So this is our at-risk after-school program. Currently, we are running a few of these programs. The only ones I'm running are ones who are already doing a summer feeding program with someone else. Summer feeding can be used for the summer, obviously, but also for emergency shutdown. So if you're in the state of Florida and your school is shut down for hurricanes and they can't, there's a lot of damage and they can't feed under the NSLP, the National School Lunch Program, they can apply for summer feeding and feed the children outside, even though it's during the school year. So I do have several sites running right now under at-risk after school. It is federally funded by the USDA, but at the state level, we are monitored by the Virginia Department of Education. We do have open sites and closed enrolled sites. Open just means you will apply for us, your site qualifies, and by qualifying, we would take the address of your site. So if you were a church and you are on 123 Main Street, we would say, okay, if this were my residence, what 3 schools would my child attend from here? What elementary, what middle, what high school? One of those 3 schools has to qualify for 50% or higher free and reduced breakfast and lunch. Just one of them. If none of them qualify, we cannot technically open your site right there. Also saying an open site, if you do qualify and we do open you, because we're a food bank and we do not turn people away, we feed people, we would state that as an open site, if someone came off the street and knew you were feeding children and knocked on your door and said, I've got hungry children, you would be required to feed them. You cannot turn anyone away. And that's just a stipulation of being a partner with us. We do have what is called closed enrolled. We were going to enroll our very first closed enrolled school site recently when COVID hit. But what that means is if you go into an Abington, Virginia area, you've got an area where most of the area is very wealthy or the businesses are. So none of the schools qualify in that area, but you do have a need. You might have people whose families work in Abington, but they commute from somewhere else, but their children are in need. We have a Boys and Girls Club down there who wanted to open a site, and they were going to cater specifically to children in need in the area. So what we would do is qualify them child by child, but 50% or more of their children had to qualify. In that instance, that would be a closed site, so someone could not knock on the door and ask for meals and be served them. It's a really difficult thing for us to say, yes, we'll open one of these type of sites. But in Abington, because of where the location was, we felt like there weren't going to be many people knocking on that door to have to turn away. So we felt like it outweighed to go ahead and feed those children. They were going to have a site of 60 kids and 49 of them were qualifying at the time that we had to readjust for COVID. So that gives you an idea of what the need was down there. Again, snacks and supper are available in this program. Typically, when it's not a COVID year, you are required to have congregate feeding. So you have to have an area for the children to eat and they have to be observed eating, and they may not take but one component home with them. With COVID, thank goodness, we have a waiver by the USDA that they can grab and go. They can grab their meals and take them elsewhere. They can grab their meals and walk around and eat them. They can eat them whenever they're hungry. They just have to be distributed at the time that you say your program is. If you go to the next slide, we'll talk about summer food service. And I think I've mentioned there are a whole lot of other different types of sites. We only run open during the summer. However, I might consider a closed enrolled site area by area again. The summer food service is what it sounds like. It runs when school's not in. However, it is also used for emergencies, like I talked about in Florida. And with COVID, this is a national emergency. So we can run this year round. So most of our sites right now are summer food service sites. You get more meals available. The eligibility is a little bit different. We still, if someone calls and they're on 123 Main Street and that site does not qualify by the school attendance zone, we can look at the census block data because that's typically going to be a lot larger. You might live across the street from a child that goes to a different elementary school than you do. So the census block opens it up a little bit. And if part of that census block meets the 50% or higher free and reduced eligibility for meals in school, then we can go ahead and open you up. Right now, one of the waivers by the USDA is eligibility is waived. So any child can be fed. We do not have to worry about where we place a site. We do not have to worry about if we're feeding children who are at need or not. And one thing I'll say, and I'm sure you all have found this as well in your areas, but my husband is the only other person who can drive our food truck and trailer. So I call him constantly saying, can you fill in? I need to get over here. I need to feed these kids for this event or over here if our food truck operator is not available. And so in the beginning of COVID, we were doing double time. So my husband ran the truck a few days for us. And one time we had some lady come up. She had 3 kids in the car. She wanted to know what we were, who we were, what we did, what we charged, all that. So when I explained the program to her, she just started tearing up and said, I've never needed help in my life. We are paycheck to paycheck. I'm laid off. My husband just lost his job. She said, I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to find food. I don't know how to feed my kids. So it was a good opportunity for me to pull her aside. I always carry a list of different food pantries who cannot discriminate or turn anyone away. And then I gave her a list of all the different stops that our food truck made and some of the other open sites where she could just run and grab, like from our libraries and that kind of thing. So we've seen a lot of growth in need, unfortunately, but we're desperately trying to meet that need. So being able to waive the eligibility has been humongous for us. And I'm really, we're working on advocacy to keep that, to continue that going forward. So right now we're running the summer food service program, and I've been running that with Chuck Miller with Wheatland Lutheran Church in Buchanan. He is someone who does not meet the eligibility requirement. He's reached out to us. I think in January, we finalized that they were going to become a backpack program because it was the only feeding program we could offer him in his location at that time. And just as soon as we got that all authorized and he was working on coming and putting in his first order and getting his volunteers set up, COVID hit. And on March 12th, we shut everything down and reopened brand new on March 19th. But there was an eligibility waiver in place. So I got on the phone to Chuck and said, guess what? I can feed your kids through this program. And so what Chuck does with his program is he has an amazing base of volunteers. I have gone and done monitors. I have gone and done a kids farmers market, and he always has a half dozen to a dozen volunteers helping out. But he will come and pick up every 2 weeks a big, huge order of food. In fact, about a month ago, he had a trailer and he was going back on the interstate and he had a flat tire and he had all this food on the back of the trailer for his program. But he goes and takes it back, and then he and all his volunteers sit there and put it all together in bags. So he distributes 1 day a week, but he gives 7 days worth of food out. And so our sites kind of go on what works best for them. Some of our sites will distribute 3 days a week, and they can distribute on Monday for Monday, Tuesday, on Wednesday for Wednesday, Thursday, and so on and so forth. We have some who do every day, and then we have some that distribute once a week and they do it for all 7 days, and some do it for 5. It just depends on your manpower, what your need is in your community, and what you're able to do. We're pretty flexible. Feeding Southwest Virginia, we request that if you join us for the summer, you give us at least 2 weeks worth of distributions if you're doing a camp, because we have to do a bunch of monitors, and if you're here for 1 week, we're going to see you 4 times in 6 days because we've got to do all these monitors on behalf of USDA. So But the problem is when this program ends, if that eligibility waiver is not still in place, I can no longer feed Chuck this program. So he has the backpack program, so he can still go back to that and run that. The other thing is I'm using him as a bit of a guinea pig because I want to start a mobile pop-up food pantry for children going forward. So if and when we lose this eligibility waiver, that'll be another program that maybe we can partner on and make sure the kids in his community are fed, because he is in one of those groups that's fallen between the cracks. He is in an area with a lot of need, and that need's not being met because of all the wealth surrounding that area. So there are a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different programs we can do. Most of the food banks across the state of Virginia run one or all of these programs. Some of them have programs we don't run, like the food pantry in the schools for the children. So you can always reach out to me or anyone else to find out more about what's available in your area. So in a nutshell, that's kind of what we do.
Well, Brandon, we certainly thank you for updating us on the programs offered by Feeding Southwest.
Yeah.
I was going with the other earlier name.
That's okay. We're a part of Feeding America. We're good. We just want everyone to know we do feed Southwest Virginia.
Well, thank you. We do have a question that came in. How do we join in advocating for keeping the eligibility waiver in place?
So you would go on to the USDA website and just see, everything comes directly to me via link. It would be on the USDA, and it would be, you could just put in summer feeding or non-congregate feeding or USDA waivers for children's feeding, and there are a bunch of them. The other one, if someone's going to advocate for that, I would push to advocate for non-congregate feeding, because we are seeing, I think part of the reason we see so many more children at this time in need is because they don't have to come and give us their name. It is anonymous. So more people don't feel the stigma of having to ask for food and then giving a name. So those two things are the two biggest, I would say, help us get past. But I think if you just go on USDA and look at the children's feeding USDA waivers, you should find something there. I get everything directly sent to me from Feeding America and USDA, so I follow it that way.
Brandon, while you were speaking, Pastor Wirtz included in the chat several websites.
Oh, yay, thank you. I was not prepared, I'm sorry.
Viewers could go to access that information.
Wonderful, that's great.
I encourage you to advocate for these eligibility waivers so you can access those websites. Anybody else have a question for Brandon?
Can I unmute myself and ask this question? Okay. Brandon, I just want to make sure I'm clear. When you talk about non-congregate feeding, you're talking about folks who that means congregate feeding means they need to come and eat together with you, yeah. And non-congregate means they can take the food and leave. Is that the distinction?
Exactly. So if you were a site pre-COVID, you would, let me give you an example. In an enrolled site, that's not a difficult thing to do, but let's just say our food truck. Our food truck will pull up to different programs, or we go into some low-income housing. We would have to set out blankets or chairs or something. Children would have to come to us, give us their name, or in the after school, but they wouldn't have to do it in the summer. They would have to take that meal. We would have to observe them eat. And it's really hard because you miss those teenagers and those preteens. We had one low-income housing community where the kids would take it and they'd be looking around and they would run as fast as they could to take that food because they didn't want to sit around with a bunch of younger children eating that meal, which is the rule. So the next time they came, we couldn't give them the meal because they took off with the last one. So it destigmatizes the children, but they can take it, and if they want to eat it right there, they can take it home. They can take it, put it in their backpack and eat it later. So The non-congregate has really helped with the feeding numbers, I feel like. But yes, one is you have to actually sit there and watch them eat. The other, they can grab it and go.
I can absolutely see where everything you described would happen as a mother of young adults and just
Yeah.
right. Like I would be uncomfortable.
Well,
myself,
and
right?
you can
So-
see certain kids and you're looking out and they're watching and seeing what's happening and they're getting
Right.
they're taking a few steps and they're on the other where you can blink. But they're hungry. So
Right.
Brandon, if a congregation wanted to participate in one of the feeding programs offered, what would they do to start the process or to initiate the process?
well, if you're in the Southwest Virginia region, just send me an email. I'm going to send you kind of a bullet pointed description of the program. We'll have a conversation. We'll talk a couple times. Usually it takes 3 or 4 conversations to see what you're interested in doing. I'll probably give you someone to talk to who's doing it similarly to you so you can ask them how great or how awful, how much work it is. But it's really simple. Basically, you're going to fill out an application we've created. It asks for specific data. Once we qualify you, if that's necessary, if the waivers are gone, then it's just a matter of us putting it on our application at the state level and the state level approving you. And all they're doing is a check to make sure we've done all our due diligence and made sure everything is on the up and up and that we've done our monitors. It's a very simple process. The children's feeding programs are absolutely no cost to anyone. We are reimbursed, so we pay for all the upfront costs and then the federal government reimburses us. So there's no cost to you all.
Now, would the church actually go shop the shelves or?
No, so that's with the children's feeding programs, we are mandated by the USDA to follow nutrition guidelines, and we have to have specific components to each of the meals. So we actually do all the ordering and they come kitted. So they'll come in a little package. If you're in the Roanoke City area, you could probably get fresh meals from our production kitchen. If you're in the Abington area within a 1-hour drive, you could get fresh meals as well. So what that would look like is, in those areas, depending on your distribution, if you did 5 days a week, you're giving out 5 days of fresh meals. And I should have gone over that, I'm sorry. But if you're doing a 1 week distribution, once a week distribution, and you're within the area of one of our production kitchens, what a lot of them will do is they might distribute on a Monday. So they'll give out a fresh meal for Monday and shelf stable for the other 6 days. But if you're outside of that region, everything will be shelf stable. I do supplement when I have grant money with produce. I'll send if you have got 50 kids and you're going to serve 50 kids meals, when you pick up your first meal order for the month, I'll give you 50 bags of oranges and apples and that kind of thing and some nutrition and recipes for that. But everything's going to be shelf stable. And so I do the ordering, I give out the menu, and then you just follow the meal numbers. They're pre-kitted that way. So what you would have to do is get a grocery bag and put 5 days worth in there according to the menu, or 7 days, whatever you choose to do. But they are pre-kitted and you're required to put a meal and a box of juice for snacks or a box of milk for breakfast and breakfast, lunch, or supper.
Pastor?
Yes, Pastor Griffith from Virginia Beach. Would you recommend that we contact the Southeast Food Bank and the person that coordinates your job to start it on this side of the state?
Yeah, and I will tell you, Southeastern Food Bank has a lot of fantastic programs. They run a few things that we don't. So I would call their programs department, ask for what children's programs they offer, and start there. And I'm pretty sure you're in Southeastern, not Peninsula, at Virginia Beach. So yeah, that would be contact. They do an amazing, and they do, so they have a much smaller territory, but it's more saturated. So they do a lot more children than we do, I bet you. but we do pretty good for the size and the ruralness of our area. But yeah, Southeastern's wonderful. They have a lot of great stuff going on.
All righty, we'll
I've-
contact them.
I have a question. I know, Pastor, you're asking about that. You can contact them, but I do know that Interfaith Alliance at the Beach, which is working with social services and multiple programs, they have a youth earn and learn in Norfolk, and they've already applied for grants for a bunch of this stuff.
Yeah, and so there are other people besides the schools and the food banks who do these federal programs. So definitely look into all the different options. If you want to know who runs programs in your area, you can call the nutrition department for Virginia Department of Education, and they should tell you everybody who's running these programs in your area. So if the food bank is not running something that works for you, that a program like that could possibly be doing it, or the schools or whatever. There are tons of sponsors throughout the state of Virginia. I'm just a food bank, so I always represent my partner food banks, but don't let that limit you by any stretch.
Right. Yeah, this area on this side, as you said, is very more populated, but they have a lot of programs. I know
Mhm.
Hampton and Norfolk ran quite a few last summer.
Oh, good.
And the Youth Earn and Learn is a really good program Karen Bailey runs. And she goes into the food desert areas and sets up fresh produce, and the kids stand there and help sell it and bag it. And it
Oh,
teaches
wow.
them learning skills for leadership, for jobs, and then they actually get paid and it's their money.
What is the name of that organization, please?
It's called Youth Earn and Learn.
And who
And
runs
the
that?
the lady's name is Karen Bailey.
Okay, I've got a lot of different irons in the fire that we want to do to expand in the food deserts in far Southwest. And that is similar to a model we're looking at. So I love to see what other people are doing across the state, and what components can I take with me, and what have you learned, so I don't make the same mistakes.
Yeah, I can see if I got her number right here, but she's wonderful. Tell her you talked to Cheryl Wolf, and we've worked on some stuff. And let me see if I can find her number for you while we're talking.
While Cheryl's researching that, does anybody have any further questions or comments? Again, I would urge you to go to chat. There are some websites that have been posted for the food banks. The Youth Earn and Learn Facebook page has been posted. Again, if you want that information, if you'll check out the chat link, and thank you, Pastor Wirtz, for posting those. I do want to remind everyone, the next Lunch and Learn topic for the World Hunger, Food, and Faith is going to be on a change date. We've typically been doing the second Thursday. Our next Food and Faith series will be on May the 6th. It'll be at 12 p.m. And it's going to be about telling the story. So how do you connect with Feeding Ministries, with wider ministry of the congregation? What are some ways that you can advertise and market your Feeding Ministries? So next session, we'll have Sandy Hagman, Chair of the Advisory Board of the Blacksburg Interfaith Food Pantry, John Stramiello, Director of Micah's Backpack up in Blacksburg, Chuck Miller, who we've heard about today, who has the mini food pantry, Feeding Kids Plus and Gardens of Grace, as I lead the discussion and a wrap up of what we learned along the way. Registration information will be available soon, but again, I do want you to please note the change in the date. It will be May the 6th at 12 p.m. After that session in May, we'll be taking a break, but we will have upcoming programs beginning probably back in the fall. So I ask you to please look at your email from the Virginia Synod concerning any programs beginning in the fall. Any other questions, comments? Again, on behalf of the Virginia Synod World Hunger team, we certainly appreciate everybody's participation in these food and faith sessions. Hope you have certainly enjoyed them, received some information as we continue to address hunger within our communities. If there are no other comments, I'll ask Pastor Kelly to lead us in closing prayer.
Sure. One question that I didn't ask, that I'm not sure if we asked you, Brandon, we have a Google Doc that keeps, and a Google Drive folder with resources in it. Is your PowerPoint something that we can share in that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just actually sent a message to John that obviously I had more pages than that to my PowerPoint with our contact information, but it didn't print. So under my door. So definitely it just covered the backpack and that kind of thing, which I think people understand the backpack, but it does have our contact information. So yeah, absolutely put that on there. That'd be fine.
Awesome. And that first slide, or one of those early slides with the info on the various food banks, could be helpful also for folks that we've got joining from various places. Thank you. Pastor John Wirtz has dropped contact information in the chat for Brandon as well. So Brandon, thank you so much for being with us today and sharing this information. It's been super helpful as folks start to vision and dream or continue to think about how we can work with and serve and help feed hungry kids in our communities. So I will close us with prayer. The Lord be with you.
And also with you.
All right, let's pray. Gracious and holy God, thank you for the gift of this day. In this week following Easter Sunday, we thank you especially for the presence of your Son, who is abundant life for all of us, and whose call to us was to care for those who are most vulnerable in our community. Strengthen us as we serve our neighbors who are both in need and exceedingly gifted. Thank you, Brandon, for the gifts that you have given to her, Holy God, and strengthen the ministries of the food banks in our communities. Be with us all this day. Fill us with your grace and peace and hope. We pray this in the name of the risen Lord. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, y'all, very much.
Thank you. I can't find her number, Brandon, but if you Google it and look up the Youth Earn and Learn.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Cheryl. Y'all have a great day and thanks for having me.
Take care.
Okay, thanks, y'all.